Yo, this is like Avengers Infinity War all over again, bro. I can't handle this. Come on, bro. Don't do this to me, please. Well, we finally made it to the end of the series, you guys, and quite honestly, they used up the 30 minutes in almost the exact same way I thought they were going to. But to be fair and straightforward, it ended up with a braver tone than I anticipated, and though no lives in the end thankfully were harmed in the making of the film, the feels were still in the air. And so I'ma just roll the tape real fast because I really want to talk about the elephant in the room, starting straight from the very beginning. Okay. Yo, how in frog's name were we supposed to determine the red moon being one of the core's pet project planets? And why weren't the eyes shown during the ending of All In? I understand it was just to keep us guessing and on our toes, but I felt awfully deceived. Also, I guess whenever the prophecy mentions the night, it must have meant eternal darkness, much like what everyone would have experienced if the destruction of Amphibia would have proceeded as planned. And I'm only to guess that the raptor-looking creature was an imaginary being there only to represent the ancient prophecy of the three gems. Because as we've witnessed from the finale itself, turns out the creature that made the stones is a prehistoric giant furry cat looking demigod that actually was quite kind. But hey now, I'm starting to skip all over the place in my script again. Alright, let's try this again. Just as we left from the previous episode, the people of Amphibia are in disarray as they begin to realize the red moon making its way over to their planet is getting closer and closer, which happens after the core decides to be a sore loser and try to literally freaking kamikaze the whole moon into Amphibia in order to both show its power and potentially get its clutches onto the gems once more.
More or less.
Andreas also explains that it was always the core's last resort in case of its sudden defeat, meaning that the vision Leaf was given was also showing how the core would be defeated at first, but eventually it would still end in the destruction of their entire civilization. Valeriana makes an appearance for the final time during the finale as well, which was great since we hadn't seen her since the second temple episode. And she's there to help the three on their final adventure together as they begin to use the power of the gems and its full potential to fulfill the prophecy and fight against the core's desperate attempt at succeeding and conquering. And boy, if this entire sequence didn't butter you up and give you Powerpuff Girls vibes from the good old days, then you're a late zoomer and you didn't know what it was like to pop in a VHS tape to watch the Rugrats movie.
Yes! Yes! Get it, girl! I know her!
She lived in my basement.
But I'm getting a little off topic. What I'm trying to say is that the fighting sequence looks superb, and you get this rush of energy from watching the characters working together and finally being able to unleash their full potentials at its finest hour. And to top it all off, we have the best version of the instrumental of the song It's No Big Deal playing in the background as this is going on, much like how it was playing during Anne's power release from the season 2 finale. More details spliced in within the sequence is of Sasha using pom-poms referencing her cheerleading capabilities, Anne and her giant tennis racket with her being very well sports oriented, plus we needed her to use a racket for at least one last time. And lastly was of course Marcy, who clearly was enjoying the fight the most, with her using a multi-sided die as a callback to her strategic ways and board games and more. During the epic battle, Andrias' father begs for his help once more, only for King Andrias to thankfully disregard his father's wishes for the very first time and instead order the robots to help Anne and the gang, creating a similar scenario in the mix during his refusal, much like how Anne had to stand up for herself against Sasha during the Toad Tower incident. Unfortunately, however, the group began to undergo a massive fallback as both Sasha and Marcy's powers began to fade due to them not exactly having full experience in using their given calamity powers, unlike Anne. And this is when a huge revelation of a theory comes to mind. Earlier within the same episode, Mother Olms comes from the ground up in order to reveal that the prophecy was for certain being unveiled as predicted. However, after giving them the choice of using their powers in order to protect the world of Amphibia, she puts Anne to the side. And what she explains to Anne and Anne alone is that a user of the stones can call upon all of the Calamity Stones' power, which will be enough to destroy the threat heading straight for Amphibia. And this, I'm certain, was without a doubt not an accident, as Mother Olms more than likely knew of Anne's love of Amphibia being the one that represents the heart, being the one who grew up the most and, of course, most importantly, the one who had the most experience with controlling the stones' unique abilities. We all have to keep in mind that Mother Olms is not stupid or dumb in any way, but instead she's just old and she unfortunately has remembering issues, and clearly she still has wisdom. So with all that's happening, Anne decides to go right ahead and use the 3 gems in order to protect everyone despite having to become a sacrifice as a result. But as tears begin to roll down everyone's cheeks and her body slowly disintegrates, she is then awakened inside of a whole new dimension from what it seems, and is met with the creator of the gems himself. But you already know that we're gonna first analyze the background surrounding the place first before we move along any further. Well, the most significant thing to take away from this is that this is clearly a mixture of Anne's home as well as her home back on Amphibia, especially, as Amphibia is the world that changed her life for the better the most. And there are memories there that I'm sure Anne finds to be her most memorable, such as the gift Sprig made for her during Christmas season, photos of both the Boonchoys as well as the Planters, a garden more than likely representing the Planters once more, 2 swords potentially referencing to Sasha and Anne's heated battle, of course there goes that tennis racket again because, you know, you gotta see it, the ancient urn from the museum, maybe the leaves and twig always in her frickin' hair, and many others. This is more than likely a representation of Anne's mindscape, as it's later told to Anne herself that there was even an old-timey computer within the dimension in order to somewhat compensate for her. Oh, and if the voice sounds familiar, it's because the actress voicing the Guardian is none other than Charlene Yee. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, so I apologize for that. She was the same voice actor who did Ruby from Steven Universe and Chloe Park from We Bare Bears, which is actually a pretty dang great show apparently. The Guardian also then asked Anne to take on the task of becoming its new replacement, as she was the only individual in the past 100 centuries to ever use the Calamity Box for good intentions. To which Anne respectfully declines and explains that she would still need more life lessons and experience in the real world before being able to somewhat feel more capable of withholding such a responsibility. And after some time, the Guardian is more than pleased with her reply and fully understands her reasoning. She thankfully is given a second chance of living due to the Guardian making a copy of Anne just before her original body expires, and says the most sus phrase in all of the episode.
Go, live your life. I've waited thousands of years to retire. What's 78 years more?
What's 17 more years?
Yeah, so Anne will be 91 years of age when she officially passes away, which in all honesty is a pretty good number. I'm shooting for about 85 years myself. She's sent back to Amphibia where she's reunited with the depressed townsfolk and friends, only to momentarily then have to say her goodbyes again alongside with Sprig and Marcy before heading back to Earth, as the Guardian provided them with shards of the Calamity Box's powers in order to give enough for them to return home, but that's about it. And so it starts off with Sasha and Grime trying their best to remain emotionally intact, when in reality they're both softies suppressing their true emotions. Marcy says her goodbyes to Olivia and General Yunan, but lastly to Andreas himself despite all that he had done, which was well deserved given the full context of his behavior, plus I can only imagine how Marcy would have turned out to be if she would have gone through the same thing. And I truly believe that she somewhat identified with how he was feeling. The last but surely not least was the absolute saddest goodbye of them all, as it was already tough for Sprig to believe he lost her for the first time, but Anne says her farewell to the Planters for the final time. And of course, ending with Anne giving the biggest hug to Sprig one final time and allowing him to have her phone for him to keep as a souvenir so that he may look through all of the many memories they cherish together. The ending is beautiful, with the characters of Amphibia being shown nurturing the land once more as it should, and everyone I'm guessing older by about a few years. As Polly goes down to Anne's old room instead of the basement in order to alert Sprig about the unveiling of a statue depicting Anne and her heroism, with Sprig soon being ambushed by Ivy like always for another grand adventure. We're then switched over to Earth nearly 10 years later, where we see a more mature Marcy being picked up by Sasha in her new convertible, where they discuss their occupations. As Sasha is revealed to be a coaching for children on their emotional baggage after achieving her psyche degree, Marcy becomes a webcomic author and potentially illustrator giving her artistic ways, and Anne is an herpetologist. Crap, I hope I said that right. Wait. Yeah, alright, she's an herpetologist. The both of them head their way to Anne's job in order to surprise her on more than likely her 23rd birthday, for it being the 10th anniversary of the incident, and since 4 years is the average amount of time they all would have needed to get their degrees. The finale finally closes with a powerful message, stating that things in life change, and that even when at first it may not seem for the best, it's how we improve and it's how we grow. And similar to how Amphibia told Anne about how family always manages to find each other, you'd be surprised what makes its way back to you even after letting things go. This show really did it. There was no next summer message, no merging of two worlds, or anything that guaranteed their return to being able to ever see their second family in Amphibia. Instead, it ended with the hardest lesson of them all: knowing when to let go. Also known as the hardest thing. And well, ladies and gentlemen, this finale was really great to watch, to which I wish they would have just made this combined of all 3 episodes together in order to make a 1.5 hour TV movie special instead of having us wait an additional week for another 30 minutes, but that's just me, I guess. But enough has been elaborated. We've analyzed this show and it will be missed. I kind of wanted it to last a bit longer, as there were some things that I felt were a bit rushed, as it was mentioned once in an episode and then all of a sudden, they just continue on from there. But I did feel like they worked very hard on this show and there was plenty of dedication put into it. And if you're curious, yes, it was better than Star Vs. However, I'm saying that it would be in 3rd place of all the shows that I've analyzed. Of course, Gravity Falls is on top. Second favorite of mine is DuckTales, and my 3rd is this show. And Star Vs. will unfortunately have to be my 4th because they tripping with that ending. And as usual, this has been the next big thing with the very last Amphibia analysis video, and hope that you all do the least hardest thing and smash that like button, my dudes. But yeah, I hope you all enjoy the video, and please like the video, subscribe if you haven't to this channel, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.